Hello， 你好，欢迎收听独立知识型脱口秀《狗熊有话说》Bear Talk， 我是大狗熊。今天这期节目呢，其实并不是由我来主持，而是我参加一期由他人主持的节目的录音。这期节目呢，是我做客另外一个播客，名叫这个 Chiwi Journal 的一个英文播客，但是他的主播呢，其实是一位华人女嘉宾，之前呢曾经也来过《狗熊有话说》的节目，叫 Camellia Yang。那么这期节目呢，非常有意思的是，我们是两个华人，但是我们都在用自己的非母语英语呢进行交流。这期节目的源头来自于我前段时间在朋友圈发的一条感悟，说我虽然已经在这个 input 和 output 都有使用英文，但是应该加大这样的一个比例。那么也分享了我的一些感想。那么在这条朋友圈发出之后呢， Camellia 因为有我的微信他看到了我的朋友圈，于是呢我们就私下聊一聊。那么他呢最初做了一个中文的播客，叫做理想屯，可能很多朋友也听过。然后后面呢去到了英国读书，然后呢工作，还写了一本书，还是写了2本书然后呢之后现在在葡萄牙的里斯本做着 Web3 的相关的工作，算是一个数字游民。那么他也在输出和输入英文的这个领域方面呢有一些自己的见解。那么我们恰恰就碰到了这样的一个共同点，于是呢觉得很有话题。因为同样是作为做中文内容输出的这个播客的主播呢，我们可能是为数非常少的做了一段时间中文呢，开始转型以主力主攻英文方向。为什么我会做这样的决定？背后的原因是什么？在接下来的节目里面呢，你可以听到我们的一些比较深入的一些讨论。当然因为后面的节目呢是纯英文的所以如果你觉得不太适合的话，你就可以听到这里就结束了如果感兴趣的话呢，可以继续收听。好的，谢谢你的收听。那么感兴趣请继续收听这一期我和 Camellia 在他的播客第136期的节目 Bilingual Content Creator Picking English Names Publish Consistent Content and Live a Productive Life with Me Bear Liu。
Kia 你好 and hello. Welcome to the Chiwi Journal podcast. I'm your host, Camellia Yang. My guest today is Bear Liu. Bear is a product designer and design mentor. He hosts an award-winning podcast show called Bear Talk, focused on sharing his learnings and ideas in design and personal experience in reading and parenting. In today's episode, we talk about being a bilingual content creator, how Chinese people pick up English names, how to publish consistent content in English and Chinese, and live a productive life. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Bear.
Thanks for having me, Camellia. Just a little bit strange because we just transferred from Chinese to English.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Every time I interview a guest who can speak Chinese, I feel a little bit weird because since we all can speak Mandarin. We did the podcast in Chinese before, talk about our life in New Zealand and a lot of relevant content about being a creator. So I'd like to invite you back again and talk in English as a bilingual content creator. Because I know not many people create in bilingual, so I kind of wonder what makes you to start this journey.
Yeah, that's a really great topic. So happy to be involved in this conversation. And also there are some challenges and probably some personal stories for every bilingual content creator that why we started. And
True.
Would be good. And also what you mentioned, just a few, probably the amount of bilingual content creators are quite smaller compared to native creators. So I think that would be a good topic for us to share some experience and to discuss why we're doing this.
Yeah, shall we start with your name? Because I know a lot of English people, they kind of wondering, it's so nice you can pick up your own name, your own English name. So why do you pick up Bear as your English name? I know it's not very common in English speaking world.
Yeah, that's a good topic start like conversation starter, because every time when I introduce hi, I'm Bear, people will say, native English speaker will say, wow, what a cool name. And sometimes I just guess, what do you mean cool? Is real cool or just funny or strange or like other meaning? And yeah, at the beginning it's just my nickname in Chinese, 狗熊, because I used to like really fat, so that I used to like don't like any outdoor activities much, so just prefer to stay at home. And then people would say, oh, it's a typical bear. And then I got a nickname, and then I kind of like it, or get used to it and kind of like it. And then when I come to a new country, so you have the opportunity to pick your own name. And then I think, yeah, why not to call myself Bear. At the beginning I consider some normal names and then I find, yeah, how about just name myself Bear. And then New Zealand Kiwis are really friendly, so at the beginning I asked a few people and they said, okay, yeah, you can pick whatever you want. I think they didn't give me the honest suggestion.
Feedback.
Yeah. So, and I took it. I say, oh yeah, probably just call myself Bear. And even my resume, my LinkedIn profile, every formal platforms, I leave it as Bear. That's my name. But then I find now it's quite good because I have the confidence to call myself Bear, and also it's easy to remember.
Yeah, it's unique. Even for me, I pick up a camellia because I love the flower.
Story of my name.
And it's not very common in New Zealand because a lot of people call them Camille or Camilla, but Camellia is also very unique, so people will remember me. So what's your career journey look like? Because I know you used to work and live in China and then move to New Zealand. Can you walk me through the whole story?
Yeah, that's probably a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. So when I was in China, I was an interaction designer. At first, I started from graphic design at first as my career starting point. After graduated from university, I got a job as a graphic designer, and then start to do some like package design, marketing design. And around 2010, that's the time the Web 2.0 started as a trend. And then web designer was quite popular. So I started to learn web design for a bit and then get related job. And 2012, I started to do something like an agency, a design agency. Started a design agency with my friend, and then we started to do some app design, interaction or app design, because at that time Apple just released the SDK for iPhone, for iOS, and we saw it as an opportunity and started to like go all in, and it seems the right direction, the right vision. And yeah, and then after a while did some apps, and also some apps are quite successful, get a lot of downloads, and the performance quite good. And around 2015 and 16, around 2015, I got this idea of go to New Zealand because there's there's a available visa that I can apply, and I think
the silver fur visa.
yeah,
I see. Yeah.
yeah, started to do some preparation and applied it, and very luckily, I got a visa, and then went to this new country with my wife. Start all the things from scratch because it's really hard to find a relevant job with your previous experience in another country, but in New Zealand, you don't have the local experience. So I started as a marketing designer. I would call it multimedia designer, but it's more like support marketing. It's kind of like a circle back to 10 or 12 years ago when I started my design journey. But that first job at New Zealand was really good because that helped me to get food on the table. I started to learn things about the culture and all the things. And after 2 years later, I moved on to really focus on UX design, user experience, because I think it's my passion. And it's also quite hard because I need to transfer or transition from multimedia or website designer to a UX designer, and it's also need to start from scratch again, another industry, another domain. But very luckily, I applied a few jobs, and then after 5 or 6 months, I got a job at a local company called Les Mills.
Oh, the famous fitness club in New Zealand.
Those people are really tough. Like they keep working out
I know.
every day. Yeah, kind of like. So I got the first job as a UX and UI designer, and then after the first job, things will be much easier later. So I moved on to Vodafone as a senior UX designer, and now I'm currently working at Zero, a financial
software
as a product designer.
How did you feel when you need to start from scratch again? Because I know in China you're a very successful entrepreneur, but once you move to a new country, an English-speaking country, you need to learn the language, culture, and start your career from very junior level. What did you feel?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a journey, like with ups and downs. And also like the timing, it's also when I started to looking for new jobs in a new country, and also my wife was pregnant, so my daughter was born later, a few months later when we moved to New Zealand. So which means that there are two major impact happening at the same time. So I have a new role as a father, and also I need to start from scratch in a new country. So that's quite challenging. I think maybe a new role is more challenging than looking for jobs. Most of the time, it's just lack of sleep. Just because as a new father, new dad, it's really hard to sleep. But for speaking of job and career and other things, I think I had anticipated that might happen because when I moved to this new country, I know because that's a new country, and language was speaking, the culture, everything is different.
Yeah.
And if you want to get settled, you want to really start your career here, things should start from the very beginning. So which means that all the previous experience, some experience definitely can bring from previous career, but most of the credits, most of the, I don't want to say achievement, but just something done, it's not transferable to this new place. So which I already have the assumption or have the anticipation. So that's the way, and it's not easy. But one thing that really helpful is that during that time, I'm not the only one who has this problem, right? So there are a lot of immigrants, a lot of people coming to a new country,
and then they got struggle. So what I need to do is just to find some examples and try to learn, or even just to get inspired by their story. Just one example, I borrowed a book from the local library, which was written by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a very typical example that a young man come from Europe, Austrian.
Austria.
And he went to America, and language was really bad at that time. But then after a few years, he was really successful. And also I just tried to find out something similar, like, is there something that I can learn or something? So just examples by examples. It takes a while to build the right mindset and confidence, everything, and then to set up the right attitude, I think, for the future steps. But at the beginning, it's really hard.
Yeah, I read Arnold's biography, and his attitude, he had such a strong self-belief. Yeah, he believed he will win the fitness, the world champion of fitness, and he believed he will settle down in America and achieve success. I think it's very important. And one thing also triggered me is although his accent, people probably say, "Oh, you don't speak a perfect English," but his accent become his character.
Yeah,
that's how he won the role in the Terminator, because they need that accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very inspiring.
Yeah, that's also one of my biggest takeaway from his story. As Chinese, we probably family with problem, right? Like accent. Oh wow, I hope I can pronounce as a perfect native speaker. Probably that is a goal for most of English learners from China, that people say, oh, I want to pronounce as close as native speaker as possible. But then after a while, I realized that's not the right goal. You are always carry something from your past, like accents, one part of it, but you just try to get used to it, or just get along with it, access it as your identity, and then try to maybe take advantage of it in the later, or maybe just try to utilize it in later stage. But the first thing would be just accept. That's part of that I've learned from his story as well.
Yeah, because when I start my Chinese podcast, I am from Shandong, so I have a strong accent from my place. And people sometimes judge me like, oh, you don't even speak standard Mandarin. How come you become a podcast host? I said, I don't care. As long as my ideas are worth spreading, my accent, it doesn't matter. Because I know you start your podcast back to 2012. It's very early. So what made you to make your podcast, and what kind of content were you doing back then?
At the beginning, it was just an experiment, or more like here's a new tool available. Like at that time, Apple released some tools from their keynote. I think it's from the
GarageBand.
GarageBand. That was the first time I realized, oh, here's a new tool, and it's quite interesting. And also, because I did some web design, so I have a little bit understanding, a little bit knowledge on how to find a server, how to set up a podcast host, which at that time is really a podcast server, which is quite difficult if people don't know some web building knowledge. But for people who already got some experience, that's not that hard. And because I learned something, I have some knowledge, and also here's a new tool, and I just try, let's make something fun and maybe use it as a personal experience, or as a personal audio blog or something, and I record some reviews on technology at first, And then I remember it's quite popular because it was really popular because at that time there probably not many options. So people just listen whatever they got in Chinese. So it was downloaded like immediately 100,000 times, and then next day another few thousand times. And then I thought at first I thought that's a problem, that's an issue. It's the number is not real. At first I think maybe just false numbers. And then I record another podcast, another episode, and update it. Also, it's got a lot of downloads. And then I find, wow, that's interesting, because it seems that this is a new thing and worth to try. It's also from the business perspective. I'm not a good business person, or I don't have any business sense. If I have, it could be quite a good business, but I just keep it as a personal habit or as a personal hobby, which is not good from business perspective. But I'm happy that I'm doing that as a personal hobby, because even podcasts have its high moments and also go as a mature medium at this stage in English speaking world, and also quite popular in China, in Chinese as well. But I still think the people making podcasts, who's podcasting by their own interest or use it as a way to explore the possibility around them, that probably keep it authentic, keep it true, and that's the beauty of this medium.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that I didn't do much trying on business, and then it's just go according to my personal interest, from technology to travel, because I just traveled to some places and find, I have some feelings, I have some findings I want to share with you, and then record a few episodes on travel, and then reading books with some book reviews, and even when I do some jogging or just joined a few half marathons. Record this is a personal experience, but I want to share with you on my podcast. So yeah, it just keep going. And then recent episodes are more around reading books. So that's pretty much how it goes. And now it's 421 episode so far.
Yeah. So when did you start to doing English content? Yeah, your Chinese content is very, very popular. And what made you want to switch a direction and do more English content?
I think if speaking of time, it probably around 2016, 2016 and 2017, because that was the time I went to New Zealand. So I went to New Zealand in 2016. But at that time, I just had this idea of create something in English. Really simple reason is that because I'm living in an English speaking country, so I want that do something in English make sense, right? So that's just the idea at first. But the officially trying, I think is, or maybe at the end of 2017, maybe at the beginning of 2019, because my first job, even it's a Kiwi company, it's a English-speaking environment, but still, there are part of the job is dealing with Chinese market. So I'm still using Chinese to communicate and to solve the problem and even to think. So it feels a little bit gap between where I live and between what I'm doing, also between what I want to do in the future. So I think that's the first drive that I think if I want to get closer to what I want to work, as a dream job or as what I want to achieve, that's an English speaking environment, because I don't want to move to a new country but still live in the comfort zone of a Chinese speaking comfort zone, still consuming Chinese content, still reading the same thing as what my friend is reading in China. And then what's the point of moving to a new country, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. So that's the first drive. And I think it's around 2019 I officially made this decision. So yeah, let's make it as regular as possible and do some serious, it's a serious content creating in English. And before I just think, oh, that's a secondary option. So create something in Chinese first, but then if I have capacity, create something in English and as an option. But then 2019, I made this decision, let's prioritize English content creating first, even I'm not good at it at all first, and I don't have any audience to compare to my Chinese platforms at that moment. But I think that's the drive of I see it as a long-term growth, or the long-term learning, personal learning and growing.
Yeah.
So because compared to the Chinese content I'm creating, it also takes a few years, like maybe 3 to 5 years, to get to a really good level on, speaking of the amount of audiences and the maturity of the content. And also I did a lot of practice by doing it, right? So I think after 100 episodes in Chinese, I started to have confidence and have the capacity to talk on the topics of each podcast. And then I think that's something the same for English content creating. I need to get some practice first by doing it. And then ideal way would be I can create content in English and I can build my audience group in English, find my market. But more importantly, I want to use it as a way to help with what I'm working on, designer in English speaking country. I don't want to do the day job and then switch to the comfort zone in Chinese speaking
Yeah.
area. And that's just like divide the personal energy, like the personal focus and energy and time into different two parts. But these two parts is not helping each other. So when I see, if I create English content, and also I can, when I'm working in English speaking environment, and these two parts actually can help each other. Something I've learned from English, from work or from my consumption in English, can help me create content in English. And the way of creating content in English can practice my presentation and communication so that I can get my job doing better. But if I'm doing this in Chinese, it's actually just divided. There are two words separated. So when I see this as how it looks like two words, I made this decision without any hesitation. So even the English content still like really small amount of views, small amount of like from the metrics is quite small compared to Chinese, but I think that's the right. So yeah, that's pretty much a really long answer for your question.
Yeah, I resonate with you a lot because when I got my first job in New Zealand, my job, although I work for Air New Zealand, a Kiwi company, but my role mainly focus on China market. So I doing Weibo and WeChat content. So I feel divided why I'm in an English environment, but I'm still doing Chinese thing. So I feel it's weird. Yeah, that's why later on I quit my job. I want to indulge myself in the fully English world. So I joined the bank Westpac to do English content. And at the beginning, I feel very worried about my English ability. I'm not sure about you. Do you still remember when you first published your English content? How did you feel? Did you feel very, will people judge me or this kind of thing?
I think that definitely for everyone who create a language, containing second language, that will be a really common issue for everyone. Definitely, I have that worry, and also even now, sometimes I do have something similar, like, oh, maybe I need to recheck. I need to do something more to make sure that it seems ready to share. But I remember when I shared the first draft in English, it was quite interesting because at that time there are two major formats of English content I'm creating right now. Part of one is just something as the English version of my Chinese content. It's out of interest, out of curiosity, and I'm using it as a personal medium. So I create, for example, YouTube videos and write some posts about what I found during the job or during the personal experience. So this is out of personal interest. But the other part at the beginning of creating English content is basically I was doing it for finding a good job. When I quit my first job in New Zealand, I want to find a designer job as a UX designer. And I thought I need to share some, say things out loud on social media and let people realize this is what I'm working on, and this is how, this is my interest, and also just to raise the attention. So kind of like I forced myself to share some posts on LinkedIn as something I've learned from, for example, from a course or something I noticed on a daily basis about some design related example I want to share. So I'm just trying to force myself, like I need to create 1 or 2 posts per week or even more frequent, and then get it shared. So it's not that formal, that long format, just a short post. But because I used to do some Chinese social media marketing, kind of like informal, but I had this idea of doing things before you need it. I think just start to do that on social media before you're using it for finding job, because when you actually need it, you start to do that. That's probably too late. So I think that's the other direction or the other way I'm creating things in English. And to be honest, it's not feel that worried for that, because I think I need to check it and then make sure and then publish it. And because I know that there might be not many people reading it, so that's not a problem. Because at first I had some worries, but then I find things different. Because at first I worried no one will read it, right? So this is one worry, but probably a small worry, a small concern. And the other concern is that maybe the grammar or the the way I describe things is not correct, not standard. But do you find these two things actually conflict?
Yeah.
If no one's reading it, then if you're writing, it
Right.
doesn't matter, right? So if you write it wrong or right, nobody cares because nobody read it. And if people read it, that's actually a good thing, even when you say things are not right, but people get the idea. And then what I realized this is just a thought. This is just a like a worry, and I haven't tested it. I haven't get the real feedback from English speaking people, or just to say, "Oh, I have feedback. Your grammar is." Well, yeah, I haven't got any comments on that or any related feedback. And also, after I share a few posts, I do find people actually read it, even smaller amount of people, because you can see, oh, how many views, maybe 12, 200, and there are a few comments or interactions. People will like it or people will support it. And then I think, oh, that's good. And let's correct something in the future. But yeah, that's the first step. And yeah, and then it's getting okay. Yeah, I get used to accept it's not perfect. I can just start to create things, and then I can improve it by doing it.
Yeah. I think it's a like trust in the process.
Yeah.
Because for me, I started my English newsletter last year. And when I published my first issue, I was so worried. I was like, oh my God, my grammar, my vocabulary probably not perfect. But actually, no one read it because for your first issue, you just started.
Yeah.
So, but with keep publishing consistent content, then you gather the audience. So for now, I got 1,200 subscribers on my
Wow.
English
Wow.
newsletter. And the people, they all say good things. They all say, oh, I love this idea. No one like criticize my vocabularies or grammar. I find, yeah, actually, I think ideas matters more than like vocabulary. You don't even need to use a fancy vocabulary.
Yeah, it will keep the message delivered in a clear way. Yeah. And also, it's probably also relevant to industries or relevant to what types of the content we are creating. If we are creating something relevant to, for example, laws or financial issues,
Yeah.
as a financial consultant, probably, yeah, grammar or like keep things accurate is really, really important. But if it's something about technology, like personal experience, other things, I think it's have a high tolerance level of mistakes, and really encourage you to do some like the ideas does matter, does make more sense than keep the format in the right way. Yeah. So luckily we're not creating something like for those restrict industries. Yeah.
So what's your target audience in English? What tools to help you to create English content?
Right. That's a really good question. I think I'm still defining or just still make it clear like who will be my target audience. Because at first I'm thinking to carry something from my Chinese content similar, like technology and travel, other things. But then after COVID, travel is not a trend. It's not a really practical thing. And also, as a family man, it's really hard to do that as well. And also, technology is good, but New Zealand is not an ideal place for technology reviews, and we are like on the far away of the world, right? So I also exploring like as a designer. So something that for people who want to be a designer, that was my my target audience, because I find that things, some of their questions, I'm good at answer it because I was there and I can help. But now I'm starting to think something probably more related to productivity and the combining of life design, productivity, and technology. So something around that would be good, because something I find really interesting is about when I sharing things in Chinese, how I learn things and how I study, or what's my reviews on books or other things, some recommendations, personal recommendations. People really like to like those types of the content. And when creating things in English, seems something similar happen, and people care more around like tools, techniques, and how we can improve our productivity, things like that. So currently, I'm trying to go to that direction, but I haven't really confirmed. It's more like test and try. The other question is about the tool.
Yeah, do you have any tools? Because for me, I use Grammarly as
Yeah,
to review my content,
that's the
and
essential.
I use Notion. Yeah, Notion and Readwise to gather notes. Yeah, get the quote, help me memorize all the content I read before. Because my newsletter is focused on the book and podcast reviews and some learnings from the hundreds of books I read, so I need to read wise. So yeah, do you have any
Yeah,
tips or
yeah.
tricks, the tools you use to help you create content?
Yeah, really good one. I think I also use Readwise, Notion,
Ah,
Heavy
yeah,
User, and Grammarly. So that's all
yeah,
essential for like for, I think, for learners. That's really essential. The other two I'm using this app named Libby. So this is a tool that you can borrow audiobooks or ebooks for free with your local library card. And there are heaps of available great audiobooks.
Ooh,
And before that, I find English audiobooks is really expensive, right? So one book for like $20, $20 or
yeah.
something. But many books are available on Libby. So that's my suggestion. Like some great audiobooks and books that are available. And the other tool that I'm using besides Notion, I use an app called Drafts. That's
Draft.
all the text, all the information, like the first-hand information. I use it to capture any thoughts or any information, and then share it from there. Maybe write a post later, or maybe write a note in Notion. But the first step will be capturing it in drafts. So that's kind of like my ideal inbox or information inbox, but
Mhm.
all based on text. And it has Apple Watch version, like you can audio, you can read it and transcript into text.
I think Grammarly helped me a lot to boost my confidence to publish in English.
Yeah.
So what are the three most popular episodes from your podcast or some popular content from your YouTube channel?
English or Chinese?
Can both? Let's start with English first,
Yeah.
then say Chinese.
Yeah, English. I find the popular topics are related to how I use my iPad to read and taking notes. So that is a really popular one. And before that, there are some book reviews, but I think it's probably depends on the trends or the algorithm by YouTube. So I haven't found any pattern. For example, the book review I did for just one book about Elon Musk got the highest views, probably just because it's about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right? So, and still exploring like what are the other popular topics. But the other way that I try to measure the performance or the outcome of the content is checking, are there any actual feedback or actual comments from people, and it's related to my content, like this is really helpful, or this even better, it changed some people's life, and then or, I will value it as I will think it's as a higher value than just those numbers. And for English content, it's still working because there's not many content got the life-changing comments so far. Still working. And for the Chinese content, there are some comparing to those numbers, because some numbers already, because it's published really early, already got like 10,000, 1,000, 1 million. One of
Wow.
them got 1 million
Yeah.
views, downloaded 1 million times. And I think it's just because the algorithm and the timing was really good. But one of the episodes is about running marathon. It was my first experience of running a half marathon, and I recorded an episode. And 2 years later, 1 or 2 years later, when I went to Chongqing Marathon, and some people just pat me on the back and say, "Are you there? I
Yeah.
listened to your podcast
Oh,
last year."
cool. Yeah.
And that's the drive. That was the reason I started running. Now
Wow.
I think I will give it a go to join marathon. And now I see you. So, and at that time, it feels really, really good. Like you do something and share some experience, and that actually changed people's life in a better way, in a good
Yeah.
way. And I think that one really really is really the highlight for me, that brings some meaning of creating content. The other thing I'm thinking is, yes, about 2014, when I went to New Zealand as a tourist. I got a lot of impressed feeling, because that was my first time went to
Mm.
this beautiful country. And then after that, I recorded 4 episodes related to what my experience of traveling New Zealand. And even now, I still got some comments, or some people send the message like, "Oh, I listened your podcast." And some people here live in New Zealand, like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast, and then I started to explore, is there any way I can go to New Zealand?" And then I applied like
Yeah.
study visa or something, and then I can come to New Zealand. So yeah, that's another highlight. Yeah, probably that's the most. And because there are other different stories, but I don't want to make it too details, or maybe like, yeah. So far, I think those are something that I still remember, and quite good good story to share.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as a content creator, I think that's the most fulfilling moment when you receive meaningful feedback from your readers, from your audience. That's kind of keep you going. You do a daytime job and also work as a content creator. How do you balance the time? And also you are a dad and you need to balance family life as well. So what's your tips to be very productive?
Wow, that's it's never be balanced. There's never a balance, a perfect balance for all the things, and it's always the priority, and the choice you make, the decision you make every day, because I think I want to take a step back about not only about managing the time and personal energy on different things. It's more around to make the meaningful choice about your time and your focus. Because as people who live in a digital age, we have endless options.
Yep.
Everything will have a multiple alternatives. And also, like your to-do list is never ending. There are always
Yep.
things you can do. It's never ending. So, what is more important to prioritize and to know what you, at the right moment, at the right time, what is the best thing you can do to create the best value according to your personal value and according to like the things you value, like family or other things. And that's the daily decision we need to make. So the balance is more around those decisions and when you should do what at that moment. And yeah, that's the high level. But on the detailed level, on the practical level, for my daytime job, I will focus to on the work hours, only worried about my job and get it done in that amount of time, and also make sure I can achieve the goal for my job, like the expectation of my goal. And then at the end of the day, when the work hours are over, that I will switch off anything in the evening or during the weekend. I will not think anything about my job. So it's more like a switch off. And then for my personal stuff, I will try to block maybe 1 or 2 blocks per week as my content creating period. For example, and during that period, I will really focus on doing things and try to get some output at the end of it. Even the quality or the standard haven't reached to what I'm really happy, but I aim to create something. Even I'm not happy about the quality, but I will still get it close at the end of this period. For example, if I have 2 hours on Sunday morning, my wife and kid go out, and then I'm the only person at home, and I only have 2 hours, and I will think that 2 hours before that, I will have a roughly plan like what I want to do within these 2 hours, and make a goal like create, for example, create 2 videos or maybe just 1 videos, and then I will aim to get it done within that time. And then sometimes I'll batch a few videos together and maybe recording 2 videos or 3 videos at the same in the same morning, and then do the editing or other things later. But it's more like always to time box things,
Good to have a
and then
deadline. Yeah.
yeah, good to have always need a deadline.
Yeah.
And even you're not really happy 100% happy about it, but it's reached to 80%, that I'll move on. And I find this is really helpful to create more things with the acceptable standard, acceptable quality level. Yeah.
A lot of people, they want to be a bilingual creator, but they always have an excuse like, maybe I am not very good at using other language, or I don't have a time. What's your advice for them?
Just start to do it. At the beginning, as we mentioned before, either nobody will see it or you make some mistakes. So you cannot run at both sides, right? So don't worry about that. So as soon as you start, you can start to get some real experience and start to get some tips, and you might fall out in a few pits, and then get some experience after. I think as soon create things, start to do it as soon as possible. That's probably the suggestion. But I know it's really hard to start creating things in a second language. Probably would be good to think about why you want to do that and be really clear about the drive. Because if you really don't understand the reason you're doing it, you're probably not going long. It's probably just one or two tryings and you will stop. But be really clear, like that's for my career, or that's for my personal interest, or something that I want to do. If you get the reason really clear, it will be more likely to keep doing that without, even without much feedback or much audience. And another thing is to start doing things that you love, or you're good at, or you are interested in, or something you're familiar with. So could be a really good opportunity to break the bubble, like reach to a bigger world, or to reach to some people you can understand you. For example, if someone really keen to learn things, or not learn, maybe just a personal habit. For example, if a guy, he's a Lord of the Rings fan, like a big fan, this topic, and as a Chinese, he probably can have some communities he can talk. Some people have the similar hobby as himself, but consider this is like a English culture at first, so we know that there will be more content in English about this topic, right?
Yeah.
So if he can use it as a way, or as an opportunity to create content, or to read or consume English content, or use it to reach out to other people with similar hobby or interest, so it will become the portal that he or she can reach to a more interesting world out of his or her small bubble. If anyone who's living in China or haven't got the opportunity to go outside, that could be a really good way to try. And also, like, focus on things you love would be more likely to keep doing it longer. And also maybe create things as drafts at first. Don't be professionalist, and just create things as a draft, and you will get better next. My consideration on this, my thought on this, is that your first 100 piece of work would be a really
rubbish.
But
yeah.
As soon as you pass this step, this process, next one would be much better. Like 101 piece would be much better than first one. So our job is to get the first 100, get this process as short as possible, and then you can reach out to you can reach to the level you hope you can do, but it's not happen at first. So just do it as draft and as often as informally as possible, and then you can pass this step as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's a 10,000 hours rule, and also according to a Chinese saying, is 1 minute on stage is 10 years effort off stage. Yeah, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do you feel your Chinese background also helps you create English content?
Yes. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm from an academia family background, so I read a lot of like 道德经, 易经, those kind of ancient Chinese book. So when I read the translation version of those ancient book, I feel like some of them lost in translation. So I can leverage my advantage to bring the Chinese culture to the Western world, and because I know those wisdom are universal, so it doesn't matter where you're from, but the fundamental wisdom is applied to all human beings. So I'm curious to know, like, what do you feel? What kind of things you like as your Chinese background help you to create your content?
It definitely helpful. At least for the same thing, we might have at least two different perspectives on the same thing. And it's if you only see things on one side, it's really easy to make the conclusion from your personal experience. But as we are creating things in another language, so you need to think the description or the delivering of the message in another way. So I think that's helpful with another perspective that we can remind or just call out. This is a consideration from another perspective, and that's really helpful. Maybe the first barrier is the language. When we start to get used to the second language and not see it as a blocker for us to express what we're thinking, and then all the understanding, all the knowledge in Chinese, that will be an asset we can use. But at the beginning, I think the first few years when I moved to New Zealand, it's really struggle. It was really struggle that to communicate in the second language, because it's always a like a delay or something. You will spend more time to consume, to process the information, and you take more time to organize your thoughts in this language to describe it. And most of the time, you only have like maybe 20 to 30% of the information you can describe, you can express. But other things, it just blocked in your mind. At that time, Chinese understanding, like the Chinese background, is not directly helping you. It's more like to remind you you're not that good, and then a lot of frustration. It's not good.
Yeah.
But when you break that limitation of language, I think for me it's happened on the third year or the fourth year when I working while leaving the new country. So it's definitely take longer or shorter for different person, depends on different person. But for me, it's on the third year, and then I start to get used to it, or like start to accept, describe things in the second language, and suddenly I find, oh, those Chinese background is really helpful, and because I can describe it in another angle. So I think, yeah, for the answer of this question, definitely helpful. But maybe at first, it's you cannot realize it because you're more focused on the communication itself, on the language itself. Yeah. But when it breaks, when the language is not a problem, yeah, it will very beneficial for creating content or even for communicate with other people.
Yeah. I'd like to close this episode with a question, because I know you have a lovely daughter. So what's the number one lesson you'd like to pass on to her?
Wow, that's a really, really deep question. I think she might have more things to teach me because she's learning as she's growing in this new world with new order and a lot of uncertainties. And I'm already like quite old, but one thing I might let her know, just help her to see, is that there are things happening, and something we can control and something we cannot control. I probably will uh, suggest her to focus on the things we can control, or we can actually do something to improve, and forgot or just don't care about things we can't. And that's pretty much what I find is really useful for me personally. And I just focus on the things I can change,
Yeah.
and forgot to caring. Don't mind other things I cannot change. Something don't want to make a specific example, but personally, I think everyone will have something relevant, like
Yep.
something you can change, your efforts, the time you're spending on things, or your personal attention or other things, and something you cannot change, weather or other things like other people's interest, other people's opinion, and those are the things we cannot change, we cannot control, or we cannot even impact. And let's focus on the things we can do. Probably I will let her uh, realize this would be a really good habit. But yeah, we don't know. Kids are really compelling, so it's probably she won't listen to me.
They are so different. Yeah. My cousin, she was born in 2006. Her generation is just so different. Yeah. They're so used to digital technologies, and their thinking is just like aliens sometimes to me. Yeah.
Big gap
Okay.
between us, I think.
Yeah. But it's good to learn from each other, grow together.
Right.
So yeah. So where can people can find you and follow your work?
Yeah, probably easiest to be check Bear Talk, or check my website beartalking.com, BARTALING.com, and there are my blog and YouTube channel, everything on that platform. So
Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bear. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Really glad to talking this topic with you, Camellia, and also like as a bilingual content creator, a lot of things. Yeah, I've learned also from, and also I think that's a really good inspiration for me as well, because I might reach out to create more English interviews or something similar. Because I used to do that, but not as a priority during the COVID, and I think that could be a good way to not only to create content, but to interact, to reach out to other people.
Yeah, make friends and reach out to people. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Cool.
probably I will be doing that. Thanks for your inspiration as well.
No problem. Good luck.